The radar screens lit up at 5:17 in the morning. 60 contacts, not 10, not 20. 60 Iranian speedboats appearing from the early morning darkness of the Strait of Hormuz like a plague of steel and diesel anger. They came in formation, front aimed directly at the USS Abraham Lincoln, the most powerful warship ever to sail through these disputed waters. No radio contact, no warning, just 60 Baghamar and Siraj-class fast attack boats speeding up to fighting speed, their engines screaming defiance as they carved white trails across the Black Gulf waters. This wasn't a test. This wasn't bothering. This was a full-scale coordinated attack designed to overwhelm, break through, and destroy. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard crews working on those boats believed their commanders' promises that speed and numbers would crash through American defenses like a tidal wave through a sandcastle. They had trained for months, memorized attack patterns, practiced dodging moves. What they didn't know was that they were about to face the most advanced killing machine ever built on the open ocean. The tactical action officer on board Lincoln didn't hesitate. At 5:18, his voice cut through the combat information center like a blade. Launch alert fighters. Get the helicopters airborne. Battle stations. The carrier's flight deck exploded into control chaos. 2 F/A 18 Super Hornets screamed down the catapults, afterburners lighting up the dawn with twin pillars of fire. Seconds later, 2 MH-60 our Seahawk helicopters clawed into the sky, their door gunners already checking weapons as they climbed to attack height. From 15,000 feet, the Super Hornet pilots had a bird's-eye view of the swarm. 60 boats arranged in a modified arrow formation, closing fast. The lead pilots targeting pod locked onto the formation, feeding real-time pictures to every screen in the strike group. Lincoln, Falcon 1, I have eyes on 60. Say again, 60 enemy contacts coming toward your position. They're carrying rockets and heavy weapons. This is no drill. The carrier group commander's response was ice cold. Weapons free. Engage and destroy. At 5:19, the Iranian formation split like a living thing adapting to threat. 40 boats kept their death charge toward Lincoln. 12 turned toward the destroyer, USS Mason. 8 sped up toward the USS Thomas Hudner. They were moving at 70 knots now. Some of the newer boats hitting 75. Front wakes brilliant in the strengthening light. Each speedboat was loaded with weapons. Rocket launchers on makeshift mounts. Heavy machine guns. Maybe anti-ship missiles. The boats spread wider, making themselves harder to target. The Revolutionary Guard crews were good, better than previous encounters. They were splitting the American defenses, forcing fighting at the same time across multiple directions. But the Americans were already inside their decision loop. The Super Hornets dove from height like hunting eagles. Falcon 1 rolled upside down at 8,000 feet and pulled his nose toward the ocean, targeting pod locked on the lead boats of the swarm. At 6 miles out, he fired. An AGM-65 Maverick missile dropped from the wing holder. Motor started, and it sped up to supersonic speed in seconds. The heat-seeking tracker found the hottest target in the formation, a Siraj-class boat with twin diesel engines roaring at maximum power. The missile hit the engine room at 1,200 feet per second. The boat didn't just explode. It vaporized. An orange-red fireball mushroomed upward, pieces raining across a 100-yard area. 2 nearby boats caught metal fragments, their bodies punctured, crews diving into the water as their boats began sinking. Falcon 2 engaged 3 seconds later. Another Maverick, another direct hit. The second boat broke apart in a waterfall of flame and twisted metal. The Iranian formation hesitated for the first time. They'd expected resistance. They hadn't expected complete destruction from 6 miles away. But the swarm kept coming. Revolutionary Guard commanders were screaming over radio frequencies, demanding their crews continue the attack. 40 boats tightened formation and sped up harder toward Lincoln. They were 5 miles out now, 4.5 miles. Even with 2 boats destroyed, 58 remained, more than enough to overwhelm defenses if they reached weapons range. The Seahawk helicopters came down at 800 feet and spread wide, positioning themselves on the sides of the swarm. The door gunners opened fire at 2,000 yards. M240 machine guns roared, 7.62 millimeters bullets pouring toward targets in steady bursts. Tracers arced across the water like angry fireflies. The gunners walked their fire across the nearest boats, punching holes in fiberglass bodies, shattering windshields, tearing through crew areas. One boat turned wildly to the right, its driver killed at the wheel. Another lost power as bullets cut fuel lines and destroyed the engine. A third boat caught fire, flames spreading quickly across the fuel-soaked deck. The Iranian swarm was losing boats, but they kept coming. 3 miles out now, 2.5 miles. They were entering the outer shooting range of the carrier group's medium-range weapons. On board Thomas Hudner, the weapons officer locked a -38 Malawian Quach's Bushmaster chain gun onto the 8 boats charging his position. At 2,500 yards, he opened fire. The 25 millimeters cannon began its careful work, firing 200 rounds per minute, high explosive rounds stitched across the water, each impact raising towers of spray. The gunner corrected aim, aiming ahead of the targets. The first burst connected with devastating effect. A speedboat's front exploded as 3 rounds went through the body in quick succession. The boat flipped forward, back rising into the air before slamming back down and flipping over completely. The second boat tried dodging moves, zigzagging at maximum speed, but the computer-controlled targeting system predicted every move. A steady burst walked fire from back to front. The boat shook under the impacts, slowed, and began taking water through dozens of holes. The Cyclone-class patrol ship Shamal engaged at the same time. Her Bushmaster locked onto boats trying to get around the formation. The 25 millimeters cannon thundered, sending explosive rounds screaming across 2,200 yards of open water. The first boat took multiple hits before its fuel tank caught fire. Flames covered the boat in seconds. The second boat turned hard to dodge, but turned directly into the Bushmaster's firing path. 6 rounds hit, within 2 seconds. The fiberglass body couldn't handle military-grade explosive ammunition. The boat broke apart, literally separated into pieces that sank within seconds. The Super Hornet circled above like patient executioners, selecting targets carefully. Falcon 1 dropped another Maverick at 5 miles. The missile tracked perfectly, slamming into a boat loaded with rocket launchers. The secondary explosion was spectacular as the boat's own weapons exploded, creating a fireball that burned 2 nearby boats in an expanding blast area. Falcon 2 fired moments later, his missile hitting a command boat recognizable by its larger antenna array. The boat broke apart, taking Revolutionary Guard tactical coordination with it. But 40 boats still pushed forward, 2 miles out now, 90 seconds from weapons range. The Iranian crews could see Lincoln clearly, a massive gray wall of steel dominating the horizon. Some boats began wild maneuvering, trying to make targeting harder. Others sped up even harder, pushing their engines beyond safe limits in a desperate sprint for launch range. The destroyer USS Mason joined the battle. Her forward 5-inch gun turned smoothly, raising to the calculated firing angle. The gun captain gave the order. The 5-inch naval gun fired. The shock wave rippled across the water. The shell arced through the air and exploded 20 feet above a group of 3 speedboats. The air burst showered the boats with metal fragments. All 3 turned off course, bodies punctured, crews wounded. 1 boat slowed to a crawl, dead in the water. The other 2 kept speed but trailed smoke and debris. Mason fired again and again, each shell carefully targeted. each explosion claiming boats or forcing them to break formation. The 5-inch gun worked carefully through the Iranian formation, turning organized attack into scattered chaos. The Cyclones repositioned, flying low over the water. At 1,200 yards, the pilots had clear shots with their Hellfire missiles. The first Seahawk fired. The AGM-114 Hellfire dropped from the holder. Motor started, and it sped up toward a speedboat trying to circle wide around the defensive screen. The laser-guided missile tracked perfectly. Impact came at supersonic speed. The boat erupted in a massive explosion. The Hellfire-shaped charged warhead designed to break through tank armor, making short work of thin fiberglass. Nothing remained but burning debris. The second Seahawk fired. Another Hellfire. Another perfect hit. Another boat destroyed. The helicopters were proving devastating, combining movement with precise firepower that could attack from angles the boats couldn't defend against. But 30 boats still came. 1 mile out now, 60 seconds from weapons range. They could launch their rockets and missiles soon, could overwhelm the closing defenses through sheer amount of fire. The Revolutionary Guard crews prepared their weapons, fingers on triggers, waiting for the moment. They never got it. At 1,800 yards, the Phalanx systems turn on. For CIWS mounts across Lincoln, Mason, and Hudner turned toward the incoming swarm. Their radar domes tracked targets. Computers calculated firing angles, and the decision to shoot took milliseconds. The Phalanx doesn't ask permission. It identifies threats and destroys them. The sound was apocalyptic. 4 6-barrel Gatling guns opened fire at the same time, each system unleashing 4,500 rounds per minute. The combined firepower created a wall of tungsten, 1,200 rounds screaming toward targets every second. The lead boats hit that wall and broke apart, literally came apart as if invisible hands were tearing them to pieces. The 20mm tungsten bullets didn't punch holes. They shredded. Front sections exploded. Engine rooms vaporized. Fuel tanks caught fire in quick succession. Boats that had been speeding toward the carrier became expanding clouds of debris, smoke, and flame. The Phalanx systems didn't stop. They tracked, engaged, destroyed. Target after target fell before that punishing fire. Some boats tried to dodge, turning hard at maximum speed, but the computer-controlled systems predicted every move. 10 boats destroyed in 15 seconds. 15 boats in 30 seconds. The Iranian swarm wasn't just stopped, it was destroyed. A few boats attempted suicide runs. Crews screaming defiance as they pushed throttles to the stops. The Phalanx systems engaged at 1,200 yards, then 1,000, then 800. None made it past 600 yards. The closest boat to Lincoln took over 200 rounds before it simply stopped existing as a working object. Tungsten rain turned it into shattered fiberglass and twisted metal that splashed into the Gulf like scattered trash. The Super Hornets continued circling above, pilots selecting targets among the boats trying to flee. Falcon 1 fired his last Maverick at a group of 3 boats running at maximum speed toward Iranian waters. The missile hit the middle boat. The explosion burned all 3 boats in a single fireball. Falcon 2 shot at runners with his 20mm cannon, the M61 Vulcan gun hammering out 100 rounds per second. Shells tore across the water and ripped through speedboat bodies like they were made of cardboard. At 5:26, 8 minutes after the fight began, silence fell. Not a single Iranian boat remained within weapons range. 18 boats destroyed completely. 22 boats disabled, sinking, or left by their crews. 20 boats running away at maximum speed, trailing smoke and damage. 0 American losses. 0 American ships damaged. The Abraham Lincoln kept course and speed throughout the entire fight, never changing a single degree. The Seahawks came down to wave top level, scanning for Iranian sailors in the water. Dozens of them floated in life vests, Stunned, wounded, defeated. The helicopters marked their positions and radioed coordinates to Iranian Coast Guard boats. Professional courtesy, international ocean law, but also a message. We can kill you at will, and we can save you at will. The wreckage told the story. 18 boats destroyed, some vaporized by Maverick missiles, some shredded by Phalanx fire, some destroyed by 5-inch naval guns. 22 more disabled by Bushmaster cannons and machine gun fire. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard had used its most advanced swarm tactic. 60 boats coordinated to overwhelm American defenses. They'd trained for months, planned carefully, committed fully, and they'd been destroyed in 8 minutes. Within hours, Iranian state media released video of brave sailors confronting the American fleet, propaganda for people back home. But the survivors returned with different stories. Stories about missiles fired from 6 miles away, about helicopter gunships that track from impossible angles, about weapon systems that fired thousands of rounds per minute with computer precision. Those stories spread faster than official propaganda. For regional politics, the results are huge. Iran's ability to threaten the Strait of Hormuz, through which 20% of global oil flows, has been a strategic trump card for decades. The Swarm Plan represented Iran's most believable threat to American naval dominance. This fight shattered that threat completely. 60 boats couldn't break through defenses, couldn't launch weapons, couldn't even get close. The strategic balance has shifted. Regional allies, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Israel, now have solid proof that American security promises carry overwhelming force. Enemies considering similar tactics received an unmistakable message about the futility of challenging American carrier groups. The Abraham Lincoln sailed south through the Strait of Hormuz without changing course. Training exercises started again that afternoon. Business as usual for the most powerful naval force ever built. The strait remains open not through negotiation, but through proven ability to destroy any threat. That reality reshapes everything, gives courage to allies, limits enemies, and strengthens the existing order where American naval dominance remains absolute and unchallengeable.